The Caribbean on alert with a higher potential of 2 tropical systems in the next 5 days. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. Good to see you on this Wednesday afternoon. I hope you're doing well. Our goal here at Meteo Mundo is to use my experience and our technology to provide you a weather forecast in your area that you've never seen. So I appreciate you tuning in, and coming up in this video to say that we have a lot to talk about is going to be an understatement. We're going to be deep diving into our 2 potential tropical systems, one an invest area in the central Caribbean with a decent chance of development in the far western Caribbean, and as it gets over Central America, the Yucatan, and into the southwest Gulf of Mexico. The second system is our tropical wave deep in the Atlantic basin, but on a path towards the Lesser Antilles by Sunday. This one has a higher chance of development and potentially becoming a fairly strong tropical storm. We'll get into both of those here as we get started. You know I love to hear from you guys. Throughout this video, drop out of the comments section below where you're viewing from, what the weather has been like. You got a specific question about the forecast, I got to help you answer that as well. Now, the first thing we're going to do, and you know how we do this at Meteo Mundo, is because we can look at the here and now on this Wednesday. There's a lot of areas with very active weather. So we're going to talk about the current conditions first, and I'm going to start with my friends in Jamaica. This area has been hammered today. Look at all of these very strong storms moving across the island on this Wednesday afternoon. And it's not only been some very heavy rain, it's also been some extremely gusty winds. I'm going to bring on the temperatures first and then take a look at the wind gust in Kingston, nearly a 50-mile-an-hour wind as these storms have come in on the northern extent of that area of invest. Rich tropical moisture in play, a lot of instability in the atmosphere, and we have gotten some very healthy storms. Again, earlier in the day, these storms pushed into portions like Kingston and Portmore and Spanish Town, Old Harbor, Port Antonio. The storms then kind of developed, and at the hour, right now, they're very prominent on the western side of the island. Montego Bay, Negril, Savannah, Lamar, but almost everyone with the opportunity for some very heavy rain, a lot of lightning with these storms, and some extremely gusty winds. Would love to hear from my friends in Jamaica what you've been seeing in your area. Obviously, it's been very active when the weather is going to stay active with all of this moisture coming in. Also very rough sea conditions on the south side of the island. Now, it's been a little bit quieter in the Cayman Islands for today. A few storms just south of Grand Cayman. Storms are beginning to develop over portions of Cuba at the hour. Another area that's gotten hammered today is up in the far northwest Bahamas. We've had several different severe thunderstorm warnings issued by the Bahamas Department of Meteorology for the northwest side of the island chain here, especially for areas like Walker's Key and Grand Bahama and the Abaco areas. Very healthy lightning, very heavy rainfall, additional storms trying to push off of the Florida East Coast at the hour. We can take a look at that right now with the live radar out of Miami, Florida. And again, over the last several hours, these storms slowly moving off towards the west. So again, where they have developed, they've been very prolific. Some storms were really nasty on the east side of Grand Bahama, moved back over Abaco from the High Rock area east, and now an additional storm is developing just east of Freeport, Lucaya, back down towards High Rock. Good storms over the Walker's Key area. A few trying to get going towards Andros and New Providence at the hour, but again, it's mainly been the far northern sides of the islands with the best chance for the storms, and it has been a little bit drier with a couple of storms developing in the central and the southeast Bahamas back down towards the Turks and the Caicos. Now we're getting into areas the Saharan dust is playing a factor. So it's been a very hot, very hazy day across Hispaniola. A couple of isolated storms developing over the Dominican Republic right now. These are going to be nice cooling storms if you get them. Otherwise, it's really all about the heat and the humidity for the island today. Same thing for our friends in Puerto Rico. In the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, a very hot, hazy afternoon. Few storms trying to develop at the hour on the western side of Puerto Rico, but again, that chance is about 10%, so consider yourselves quite lucky if you catch one of those storms. It's been basically dry through the northern side of the Leeward Islands here in general. Of course, the orange that you're seeing, that is the 5-day formation zone from the Hurricane Center. I'm just going to take that off right now because it's just obviously easier to see the here and now across the islands, but Barbuda and Antigua, St. Kitts and Nevis and Montserrat and Anguilla, Guadeloupe and Dominica, Martinique, St. Lucia, It's been a hot day. Same thing for Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago. There's a few showers that might try and drift down towards TNT later in the day, but generally speaking, we're dry as that Saharan dust has come in. We're dry back into the ABC Islands. If you got some rain, Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao with the invest moving across your area late yesterday, early on this Wednesday, let me know. Unfortunately, that moisture is now farther west, and we're starting to see the return of the true Central American gyre here. We're now back into Panama and Costa Rica. We have a southeast wind, so this spin is going to aid in all of this thunderstorm activity with our invest area as it pushes closer to the Central American coast over the next 48 hours. But if I, again, take off our 5-day formation zone for today, storms have been a little bit more prolific. Honduras, Nicaragua south. They've been a little bit more isolated up in the Yucatan today, trying to get breaks for Cancun and Cozumel, which have been so hit hard. And storms have been firing up through portions of Belize. Kind of began in the inland areas, try to drift towards the coast, but all of Belize had at least the opportunity for a few storms as we've rolled through the day. So friends, that is the here and the now. Now, one other factor that's playing a big role in what's going on is that Saharan dust layer. You can see it's very prominent right now through the central and the northern sides of the Lesser Antilles, through Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and portions of Hispaniola. Those are the areas have been generally dry. Again, as of note, our invest area is right here, and there is some Saharan dust to the north and to the east, but it has been able to overcome that, and this layer will drift more north and west over Cuba and portions of the Bahamas as we go over the next 48 hours. Some of that will move into Jamaica and into the Cayman Islands as well. But again, this invest is so robust, it's going to be overcoming all of that. Okay, now we're going to get into the tropics, guys. We're going to deep dive into this invest in the central Bahamas, and then we're going to get into what's happening in the Atlantic and the potential for the Lesser Antilles over the weekend. So let's talk about our invest area right now. It's invest 94L. As of last check, it's still moving fairly quickly off towards the west at around 32 miles an hour. Winds are 30. Again, this is still a disorganized area of showers and storms. Nothing has really gotten more concentrated at the hour. It's still in a very elongated system. And the Hurricane Center has it at a 20% chance for development as it nears the northern coastline of Central America, towards the Yucatan, over the Yucatan, and then into the southwest Gulf of Mexico. Now, look, it's going to be running into the east side of the Central American gyre, and if nothing else, heavy rain is going to be expected for Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, all of the Yucatan and Central America over the next several days. So a flood threat will come along with this system. Let's take a look at the visible satellite imagery. Just give you a couple of different good looks here. This is our high-res visible satellite imagery at Meteo Mundo. We're obviously seeing a few clusters of very intense storms developing. Nothing right now near the center of circulation, but that broad center will continue to traverse towards the north and to the west here over the next several days. Let's get back over to the enhanced satellite imagery here. Let's look at the water vapor imagery. You can see that the moisture is now more abundant in the southwest Caribbean, and that is going to feed into the system. And any dry air ahead of this should not be stopping it. It's just about whether we can actually spin up a true area of low pressure here. But regardless, this is going to bring a ton of very heavy rain. Now, nothing has this becoming a significant system. More than likely, if we do get a spin up, it's going to be a tropical depression, more than likely, right? Not getting into tropical storm strength. So let's switch over and take a look at the model. It's going to bring in the reflectivity here from the GFS. Going to get this going here over the next several days. Let me just reset this particular number, and then we'll loop in. And again, we're going to focus on this area first. So we can clearly see the moisture beginning to come in. Again, on the GFS model, we don't see anything that's extremely concentrated. We do see the Central American gyre coming back into play and how wet it's going to be. And I really believe that that is going to be the significant impact from whatever this ends up becoming. Whether it just stays a disturbance or becomes a tropical depression, it's going to stay fairly weak, it's going to stay fairly sloppy, but the moisture associated with this is going to be very robust, and very high rainfall totals are likely to come out of this. Now, as far as timing goes, This is going to be as we get into our late Thursday, Friday, and early on Saturday. So just to kind of back this up, here we are in the here and now. As we get through our Thursday, we'll start to see that system try and get going. Notice that the hurricane center has now made this yellow area even closer to the Central American coast, more than likely not developing farther off towards the east. But again, on this GFS model, it really just stays a pretty sloppy system. We can take a look at the surface winds associated with this. Now, if you joined me yesterday, the GFS was a little bit more robust in the wind field, okay? It still has some decent winds offshore of Belize and portions of Honduras and Guatemala. And we can see that. And again, if they're going to wrap up, if this is going to become a tropical depression, it's going to happen right there as we get into our Friday. This is the 28th. And again, I can query these numbers. Give me just 1 second here, get it back to the right time frame. It's really weird. When I want to query something, it actually jumps the time frame for me here. But you can see that we're very close to tropical storm force winds. And these are sustained winds at the low levels of the atmosphere. All right, these are not gusts. So tropical depression, if we get a center of circulation here in the central dense overcast, maybe a weak tropical storm, but the models have come down on intensity with this, and some of them don't even have a closed low. But the bottom line is it's going to be an extremely active late week and into the weekend here. Then if we follow these winds across the Yucatan and into the southwestern Gulf of Mexico, we'll start to pick up those winds a little bit more. Let me extend the model out just a little bit more in time. We'll take it out to the 31st to kind of cover what would be, the 30th, because it's June, Rusty. I'll go out to the 1st. How about that? Let's go out to July 1st. I want to go out another 48 hours. We'll do that and then put this into motion. And then you'll see the winds pick up again in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. So a few different things could happen here. We could get a depression in the Northwest Caribbean, which either holds together or falls apart over the Yucatan. We could get a depression forming in the Southwest Caribbean because nothing ever developed as it crossed the Yucatan, or this just stays a disturbance and brings a ton of rainfall to the area. All of them are about as plausible as any other right now. But if you understand what I'm saying, there's not going to be a strong system in this area, but appreciably the rainfall is going to be an issue. So when we look at the rainfall totals here, and again, I want to state very significantly that the GFS model, which I'm showing you right now, is vastly underdoing the rating in the northern tip of the Yucatan, okay? It's going to be much more in the line of what Belize is going to see in Guatemala and Honduras and Nicaragua, where we will be talking about several inches of rain out of our disturbance, okay? And even towards Jamaica, I think we're a little bit too low here. Same thing for the Cayman Islands area. You're going to get some of those easterly winds coming in, no doubt about it. Very heavy rainfall could be moving back into Mexico as well. So that's the broad brush of this disturbance. Again, low chance of development. If it does, it should stay weak. These are the areas that need to continue to monitor this, and I'll keep an eye on it for you for the next several days. Jamaica, Cayman Islands, especially Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, and all of the Yucatan Peninsula. And then we'll see what happens with the storm as it emerges into the southwest Gulf of Mexico. That, my friends, is obviously disturbance number one. Let's talk about this one in orange. Again, right now, at this point in time, we have ourselves a relatively robust tropical wave. It hasn't developed yet. We don't even have an invest area. But the reason why this area is already orange is because our global models are picking up on a fairly strong area trying to move into the Lesser Antilles beginning on Sunday. So already we have a 40% chance of development, and I have no doubt that is going to get even stronger. I also want to note, on the heels of this tropical wave, there is another very robust tropical wave emerging off the West African coast, which could be another player in our weather by mid next week. And we'll talk briefly about that coming up as well. So that's the enhanced satellite imagery. This is the visible imagery here. Again, love to show you this. We're losing some of the daylight there, the far eastern Atlantic, but you can clearly see that spin, that wrap up there in the Viz satellite imagery. We'll take a look at the water vapor imagery. So the very interesting thing is there's an area of high pressure right here. There is a mid-level anticyclone, and on the southern side of this, with the clockwise winds, it's actually a very favorable environment. So if this can hold together, which it most than likely will, this anticyclone just north of us is actually providing very low wind shear for its trajectory across the rest of the Atlantic and then closer to the Lesser Antilles. And you can see the formation area. Look, I'm going to say everyone in the Lesser Antilles, even Anguilla and Antigua Barbuda, just outside of this area, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and the north coast of South America, all need to be paying very, very close attention to this. On this particular map, I'm going to get back over to the enhanced satellite imagery. I'm going to pause it and I'm going to actually bring on our spaghetti plot models here so we can look at that real quickly as well. So let's bring on our forecast models. Are they going to cooperate? Maybe not. You know what? I realized that on this one, I've been looking at a couple of different things. Because we don't have an invest area, we actually don't have the models that I can show you on this particular product. But once this becomes an invest, I'll be able to do so. Here's the bottom line. GFS, European models, the two global models do bring this as a tropical system, depression or storm, through the Lesser Antilles starting late Sunday and into Monday. So let's deep dive into that. We're going to start off with the European model. We're going to look at the big broad perspective, then we're going to get tighter and tighter. So here's our developing system right here, okay? We can see a closed center of circulation moving into the southern side of the Lesser Antilles, the Windward Islands, and I want to note that it does hold together on the European model, traversing the Caribbean. So we may not be said and done with this system as it moves across the Lesser Antilles Sunday, Monday. We'll have to watch out for the ABC Islands and other potential interests in the Caribbean if it can hold together. But you can see that on the European model doing just that. This is a close-up view of the Windward Islands right now. Again, there's the loop, and we're gonna still frame this, but I just wanted to get you an idea. You can see the low tracking very close to Barbados, then moving close to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Grenada, just north of Trinidad and Tobago. So still frames of this. Let's look at this. This is from the European model deterministic plot. So we're not looking at one ensemble member out of 50 and just, I'm not cherry picking. This is the deterministic model. This is Monday morning, 7 a.m. We have a closed low 999 millibars just south of Barbados, moving off towards the west. That's kind of a snapshot of the loop that I just showed you as far as the pressure goes. As far as the winds go, same time frame, Monday morning. These are sustained winds in miles per hour. So you're gonna have 40-mile-an-hour winds, and actually the maximum, if I take myself off camera, do you see where on the bottom right-hand corner it says 53.8? That is the maximum sustained wind you see on this map that would be just offshore of Barbados. So the European model does support a tropical storm moving in, and it would be named a Beryl, and then it moves off towards the west. A little snapshot into the early afternoon hours of Monday, and you can see those fresh winds for places like St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Again, this is from the European model in the time frames that I just mentioned. So that is the output there. Let's take a look at the GFS model, and I'm going to load this up for you. So the first thing I'll do on the GFS, let me get back over here, is let me bring this back here, and then I'm going to loop up the reflectivity. Let's see, the first should work here. That should get us through this. So I just showed you the output from the European model. Now we're going to look at the output from the GFS model. We'll take a look at the reflectivity. We'll take a look at the winds as well. First thing to note here, obviously, is we want to have model-to-model consistency. So as far as time frame goes, this is going to be Sunday at 1 p.m. We could potentially start to see impacts to the islands beginning throughout the day Sunday and of course into Monday. Now, the GFS model is slightly off to the south compared to the European model. It brings Trinidad and Tobago a little bit more into play. Obviously, at this point in time, friends, this is all for informational purposes. This forecast will change, okay? This forecast will change. Please do not watch this video and go, this is exactly what's going to happen. I don't need to keep updates. You know, we're going to go with this. Because look, these models will change as far as their intensity and their timing and their movement. But we do have relatively good agreement between the European model and the GFS model as far as time and location. They're not that far off from each other at this point in time. And then we start to see that area, as we mentioned, move closer to the ABC Islands. Let's take a look at winds on the GFS model. Switch over to the winds. And again, as I've mentioned, as this is loading up, if you have a specific question about the forecast, drop it in the comments section below. Now, that being said, okay, we don't want to start speculating and going, well, okay, well, definitely tell me what's going to be happening Sunday night here, Rusty. I mean, I'm obviously telling you right now that this is still a watch and wait 5 days out. But that being said, this is not a system that's going to impact us 7 and 10 days from now. This is a potential tropical system that's going to be impacting us 4 and 5 days from now. So we really do need to start paying attention every day if you live across the Lesser Antilles. So again, GFS model loading up here. You can already see, if we compare this to the Western Caribbean system, how much more significant this one could be. So let's take a look at this. Again, here come the wind fields as we get into late Sunday and into Monday. So let's stair step this, and you can see the time frame. This is going to be late Sunday night and then into Monday. Now, when I click this, it's going to, as I said, it jumps in time, and I don't know why. But if I bring this back now and we start looking at what the wind fields are from the GFS model, and I do have to click that again, I want you to notice that the winds are a little bit more significant. It's the same thing, sustained winds at the surface. GFS model is supporting a medium strength tropical storm with winds that could be pushing over 50 to 55 miles an hour. As it gets closer to, again, it's just slightly, I mean, the European model is here Monday morning. The GFS model is here, probably no more than 100 miles in difference, but it does bring more impacts to Trinidad and Tobago especially. Grenada, about the same or slightly higher impacts there. And again, you can see as the wind field pushes through, more significant winds with the GFS model. Both of them tropical storms. It's just whether it would be a minimal tropical storm or slightly stronger. And again, this holds together, and on the GFS model actually becomes even stronger as it moves west of the Lesser Antilles. So that is one to watch, again, traverse across the Caribbean. By the way, the other tropical wave just emerging off the West African coast could be the next one to monitor as we get towards mid next week. Obviously, we're only going to use very broad strokes as far as talking about that one in the forecast. But if I take this and I'm going to let it loop out to July 4th, we're going to see that this one could be moving across the same areas and also be a tropical system of some kind. Okay, still too far out in the forecast to get any greater detail than that, but that is area number 1 with a higher likelihood. And here's area number 2. I mean, you want to talk about tropical train, guys. These tropical waves following one after each other, maybe no more than 48 to 72 hours apart. There's number 1, and again, potentially number 2. So both of those will bear watching over the next 5 to 8 days. But we are going to focus, obviously, on the one that's coming through first, that the Hurricane Center has already highlighted. I also want to just note real quickly that the fact that we're having these tropical waves in the main development region of the Atlantic this early in the year is honestly crazy. I mean, this is an August, September, October thing that we watch these waves coming off of the West African coast, traversing the entire Atlantic basin, and then wrapping up as it gets closer to the Caribbean. This is not something that we typically see late June into early July. So the areas that need to monitor this tropical disturbance are these: all of the Lesser Antilles, the north coast of South America, the ABC Islands, the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. Obviously, right now, areas to the north on this would have lesser impacts based on what I'm seeing right now, but all of these areas need to keep a very close eye. Friends, as we get into the forecast, I thank you so much for liking this video. If you're getting anything out of it, do me a big favor and like. If you haven't become a subscriber yet and you want the latest forecasts across the Caribbean and the Bahamas and all these tropical updates, click subscribe right now. If there's anyone that you know who you think will get something out of this video, thank you for sharing. And thank you for all of those who have found other ways to support me here at Meteo Mundo via our memberships, our super thanks, and our PayPal and our Venmo that you can find in the description. All right, now we're going to get back into the forecast for everyone else who are not going to be impacted by this over the next several days. I'm going to show you the NAM model. I've already shown you the GFS. I'm going to show you the NAM model here over the next several days. Here's a few different differences here, mainly for the Western Caribbean system. Again, the NAM has always been a little bit sloppier in nature, but I honestly think it picks up on the Central American gyre better than the GFS model. It keeps areas like Jamaica and the Cayman Islands wetter, and with this expansive inherent twist in the atmosphere and just a ton of tropical moisture, all of that I believe holds true. So after, again, a few more days of more spotty rain for the Yucatan and Central America, look how wet it gets again as we get into late Thursday, Friday, and this will carry into Saturday and Sunday as well. The NAM model, again, continues with a relatively weak system. Because it's up, I have no problems here real quickly, just switching over to the wind fields, and I'm going to load that up just to again show you the wind field associated with the NAM with this. And the European model, by the way, I didn't show you an up close look, but the European model does not have a closed center of circulation before it moves into the Yucatan, okay? Now, the NAM is a little bit stronger with some of the winds, but these are going to be fresh winds towards Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, and just a little bit more robust in general. But again, if we're going to get an actual development, it's going to be in the far northwest Caribbean, or it's going to try and hold on, stay alive, if you will, over the Yucatan, then try and develop in the southwest Gulf. But again, nothing is extremely significant as far as the winds go. And you can see here on the NAM, no real closed center of circulation. As a matter of fact, the low-level low might be south and east, or where we have some of the strongest winds, but it stays just relatively disorganized. Again, it's not going to shock me if we get a tropical depression, but I don't want to overstate how intense it's going to be. The bigger story is going to be the widespread heavy rainfall and some of the flooding threats it's going to bring to all of these areas. After today, we dry out in the Bahamas. We're still going to have some Sahara dust in play for the Turks of the Caicos. As we get into the latter part of the week, especially over the weekend, additional rain will begin to return to places like the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, the northern side of the Lesser Antilles, and we'll start to see more moisture ahead of that next tropical disturbance, whatever it's going to end up becoming, moving back into the Lesser Antilles beginning on Friday and Saturday. Rain chances will improve before that. ABC Islands will stay relatively dry, and as I've mentioned, a very wet forecast for our friends throughout Central America. So breaking down the rain chance in the area, 50% chance for the Bahamas today against some healthy storms. Lower rain chances as we go through the rest of the week. Central and Southeast Bahamas, relatively low chances. Turks and Caicos with the Sahara and dust in play, relatively dry. Cuba will see healthy storms developing with the heat of the day each afternoon. Cayman Islands, rain chances will go up again. Belize City will get up to a very high chance, obviously with the approach of that disturbance on Friday. Same thing for Cancun and Cozumel. Jamaica, very high tomorrow. Still a pretty high chance on Friday, but as the disturbance moves away, your rain chances come down a bit. The Dominican Republic's chances really start to spike again by Friday. Same thing for our friends in Puerto Rico. U.S. and British Virgin Islands, pretty good chances. Bermuda will see some good showers over the next few days. Anguilla's rain chances going up from a 10% chance today and some haze back up to a 50% chance on Friday. Same thing for our friends in St. Kitts and Nevis. Antigua Barbuda from a 10% chance today to 50% chance on Friday. Dominica looking better for rain chances. By the way, next couple days for the Lesser Antilles, hot, hazy conditions. Be very mindful of the heat in the afternoon hours. Barbados, a 30% chance for Friday. Few scattered showers continue for Trinidad and Tobago. Better chance for Guyana. And again, the ABC Islands, just around a 20% chance for storms. Okay, friends, we're keeping an eye on things. Again, I've got this invest area, 20% chance of development. We're keeping an eye on, obviously, this tropical wave with a higher likelihood of impacts to the Lesser Antilles as we get into the latter portions of the weekend. 40% chance already from the Hurricane Center. And around this area, numerous showers and storms. Once again, thank you for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing as well. I appreciate you. You know I've got you covered. I'll have the latest information for you tomorrow, right here at Meteo Mundo.